The Zhentar galaxy, a sprawling web of stars and civilizations, had known only one ruler for centuries, the Galactic Empire. Under the reign of the Emperor, a figure more legend than man, the Empire had expanded its dominion from one end of the galaxy to the other. Star systems fell into line under the Empire's watchful eye, their resources and populations bent to serve the Emperor's insatiable hunger for power. Entire worlds were transformed into factories, churning out war machines, while others became the breeding grounds for the Empire's ever-growing army. Despite the Emperor's iron grip, the galaxy was vast, and even the most ruthless regime could not be everywhere at once. In the dark corners of space, far beyond the reach of the Empire's gaze, there were whispers of a fleet unlike any the galaxy had seen before. These rumors, at first dismissed as the ramblings of madmen or the fabrications of desperate smugglers, began to gain traction as more and more traders and travelers reported sightings. The first whispers came from the edge of the Corthan Nebula, a dangerous and largely unexplored region of space known for its treacherous gravity wells and unpredictable solar storms. A few brave, or perhaps foolish captains, had ventured into the nebula, only to return with tales of ghostly ships, their designs unlike anything in the Empire's vast catalog of known vessels. The ships were sleek and angular, with a metallic sheen that glimmered with an otherworldly light, and they moved with a grace and speed that defied conventional physics. At first, the Empire's high command dismissed these reports as nothing more than space mirages, anomalies caused by the nebula's unique properties. But as the sightings continued to pour in, and as more and more witnesses came forward with detailed accounts, the Empire could no longer ignore the growing unease. In the heart of the Imperial Palace, nestled deep within the core world of Zhentar Prime, the Emperor convened an emergency meeting of his most trusted advisors. The room, a cavernous hall lined with the trophies of conquered worlds, was filled with the holographic images of admirals, generals, and intelligence officers from across the galaxy. At the center of the room, shrouded in shadows, sat the Emperor himself, a figure of mystery and dread, his face hidden beneath a hood that never revealed more than a glimpse of his cold, calculating eyes. "Enough of these trivial reports," the Emperor's voice echoed through the chamber, cutting through the murmur of conversation like a blade. "What is this fleet that dares to appear on the fringes of my empire, and why have I not yet been given a satisfactory explanation?" Admiral Karthus, a veteran of the Empire's most brutal campaigns, and one of the few men in the room with the authority to speak directly to the Emperor, stepped forward. His uniform, adorned with the medals and insignias of his many victories, glinted in the dim light of the chamber. Karthus was a man of action, known for his strategic brilliance and his unwavering loyalty to the Empire. "Your Majesty," Karthus began, his voice steady despite the weight of the Emperor's gaze, "the reports we've received are troubling. The ships sighted near the Corthan Nebula match no known design within the Empire's records. They are unlike any vessels we have encountered before, and they appear to possess technology that surpasses even our most advanced weaponry." The Emperor remained silent, his expression unreadable beneath the shadows of his hood. After a long, tense pause, he finally spoke. "And what of their origin? Who dares to challenge the might of the Empire?" Karthus hesitated, knowing the next words would sound absurd even to his own ears. "The ships bear markings and designs consistent with ancient human technology, Your Majesty, technology that predates the Empire by thousands of years." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the assembled officers. The idea was preposterous. Humanity's origins, lost to the mists of time, had long been the subject of myth and speculation. The ancient human civilizations that once spanned the stars had been destroyed in a cataclysmic war, their remnants scattered and absorbed by other species and empires. The Empire itself was built on the ashes of those fallen civilizations, its founders having claimed the mantle of humanity's legacy. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting that these ships are human?" "It is difficult to say for certain, Your Majesty," Karthus replied cautiously, "but the evidence suggests that they are, at the very least, linked to the lost civilizations of Earth." The room fell into a stunned silence, Earth, a name spoken only in legends, a world that had given birth to humanity before being consumed by its own hubris. The idea that an entire fleet of ships, bearing the marks of that long-dead world, could have survived in the depths of space was almost too incredible to believe. But the Emperor believed in nothing so much as power, and the possibility that an unknown fleet, armed with technology from humanity's forgotten past, could challenge his rule was a threat that could not be ignored. "Admiral Karthus," the Emperor's voice was a cold command, "you will take the Third Imperial Fleet and investigate this matter personally. Find these ships, uncover their origin, and eliminate them if they pose a threat to the Empire. Do not return until you have done so." Karthus bowed deeply. "As you command, Your Majesty." With that, the meeting was adjourned, and Karthus wasted no time in assembling his fleet. The Third Imperial Fleet was one of the most powerful in the galaxy, consisting of over 100 warships, including the flagship Eternal Wrath, a dreadnought capable of destroying entire star systems. The fleet's departure from Zhentar Prime was a spectacle in itself, with hundreds of smaller ships and supply vessels swarming around the massive capital ships as they prepared for the journey to the edge of the galaxy. As they entered hyperspace, Karthus couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over him since the meeting with the Emperor. He had faced countless enemies in his career, from the ferocious Zhentarans to the cunning Rylothians, but something about this mission felt different. The idea that a fleet of ancient human ships could have survived for so long, hidden in the depths of space, was both thrilling and terrifying. The journey to the Corthon Nebula took several days, during which Karthus and his officers pored over the reports and data that had been collected so far. The more they studied the information, the more questions it raised. The ships had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, evading the Empire's vast network of sensors and spy satellites. Their technology, though familiar in design, was far more advanced than anything the Empire currently possessed. And perhaps most unsettling of all, the ships seemed to operate with a precision and coordination that suggested they were part of a larger, organized force. As the fleet emerged from hyperspace on the edge of the nebula, the atmosphere on the bridge of the Eternal Wrath was tense. Karthus stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the swirling clouds of gas and dust that made up the nebula. Somewhere in that vast expanse, the unknown fleet was waiting. "Activate long-range scanners," Karthus ordered. "I want a full sweep of the area. If there's anything out there, we'll find it." The crew worked quickly, their fingers flying over the control panels as they initiated the scan. For several agonizing minutes, there was nothing but silence as the data came in, filtered through the ship's advanced computer systems. Then, suddenly, the scanners pinged with multiple contacts, hundreds of them. Karthus leaned forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "What are we looking at?" "Sir," the chief sensor officer replied, his voice filled with awe. "We've detected a fleet of unknown ships. They're massive, and they're headed straight for us." The main view screen flickered to life, displaying the incoming fleet. The ships were unlike anything Karthus had ever seen, sleek, dark, and bristling with weapons. They moved with an eerie grace, their formations tight and precise, as if they were part of a single, living organism. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the Imperial fleet prepared for battle. Karthus knew that this would be a fight unlike any other, a confrontation that could determine the fate of the entire galaxy. But even as he gave the order to ready the weapons, a part of him couldn't help but wonder, who were these people, and what had brought them back from the depths of history? Could it really be that a human fleet, long thought extinct, had returned to challenge the might of the Empire? And if so, what did that mean for the future of the galaxy? The fleet of the Galactic Empire, led by Admiral Karthus, advanced cautiously into the outer reaches of the Corthon Nebula, where the unknown fleet had been detected. The swirling gas clouds and volatile energy storms of the nebula made it a treacherous environment for any ship, but the Imperial vessels, equipped with the latest in navigational technology, pressed forward with unwavering precision. As the fleet ventured deeper, the mysterious ships came into clearer view. The Imperial bridge crew marveled at the sight, an armada of sleek, formidable vessels, each one bristling with weaponry and emitting a strange, faintly glowing aura. Their hulls were dark and seamless, with a strange metallic sheen that reflected the nebula's chaotic light. They appeared almost alive, like great beasts from an ancient legend. The tension on the bridge of the Eternal Wrath was palpable. Admiral Karthus stood at the helm, his eyes locked on the viewscreen as he took in the sight of the approaching fleet. He had seen countless ships in his career, from the crude war barges of the Zentarans to the elegant star cruisers of the Rylothians, but nothing like this. These ships were unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered, and they exuded a sense of purpose and power that was unnerving. "Report," Karthus commanded, his voice calm but firm. "Sir, we've identified over 200 vessels," the chief sensor officer replied, his voice tinged with awe. "Their energy signatures are off the charts. It's like nothing we've seen before, and they're maintaining a perfect formation." Karthus nodded, though the information offered little comfort. The unknown fleet was massive, and its capabilities were a complete mystery. But what concerned him even more was the disturbing sense of familiarity that gnawed at the edges of his mind. These ships, though alien in appearance, bore the unmistakable hallmarks of ancient human design, designs that should have been lost to history. "Open a communication channel," Karthus ordered. "Let's see who we're dealing with." A moment later, the bridge filled with the faint hum of the comm system as the connection was established. For a few tense seconds, there was nothing but static. Then, abruptly, the static cleared, and a holographic figure materialized in the center of the bridge. The figure was that of a woman, tall and imposing, dressed in a sleek uniform that bore the insignia of an ancient Earth Federation. Her eyes were sharp, her expression stern but composed. She exuded an air of authority, the kind that comes from years of command and the certainty of one's purpose. "I am Commander Elena Voss of the United Earth Alliance," she announced, her voice strong and clear. "You are trespassing in our space." The bridge crew exchanged stunned glances. The United Earth Alliance was a name from the annals of history, a government that had supposedly fallen thousands of years ago, long before the rise of the Galactic Empire. It was a relic of humanity's forgotten past, a time when Earth had been the center of a vast interstellar civilization. But the idea that such an entity could still exist, let alone possess a fleet of this magnitude, was almost beyond belief. Karthus recovered quickly from his shock. He was an experienced commander, and he knew that in situations like this, hesitation could be fatal. "This is Admiral Karthus of the Galactic Empire," he replied, his voice steady. "We were not aware that this region was claimed by any sovereign power. Identify yourselves and state your intentions." Commander Voss's expression hardened slightly. "The United Earth Alliance is the legitimate successor to the ancient Terran Federation, and we have returned to reclaim what is rightfully ours. We seek not war, but we will not tolerate any interference from the Galactic Empire in our affairs." Her words were like a thunderbolt to Karthus and his crew. The ancient Terran Federation, the very foundation upon which the legends of humanity's rise were built, was a name that carried immense weight, even after millennia. To claim descent from such an illustrious and supposedly extinct civilization was audacious, if not outright blasphemous in the eyes of the Empire, which had long considered itself the ultimate evolution of humanity's legacy. Karthus knew that this conversation was delicate. The Empire's might was undeniable, but this fleet represented an unknown quantity, and more than that, it touched on the most ancient roots of human history. A wrong move here could plunge the galaxy into a war unlike any it had seen in millennia. "You speak of reclamation," Karthus said carefully, "but Earth and its legacy have been lost to the sands of time. The Empire has safeguarded humanity's future for centuries. What claim could you possibly have to what the Empire has rightfully built?" Voss's eyes flashed with a mix of pride and determination. "The United Earth Alliance is not just a relic of the past, Admiral. We are the descendants of those who survived the great cataclysm that destroyed Earth and scattered our people across the stars. We have kept the old ways, the knowledge, and the technology of our ancestors alive in secret, hidden from the eyes of those who would misuse them. And now, We have returned to restore what was lost." The bridge fell silent. The implications of her words were staggering. If what she said was true, then the Empire was not the rightful heir to Earth's legacy, but an impostor, a false ruler of a fragmented and scattered humanity. The very foundation of the Empire's legitimacy could be called into question, but Karthis was a man of the Empire, and he would not be so easily swayed. "Even if what you say is true, Commander," he said, his tone still measured, "the galaxy has changed. The Empire rules these stars now, and we will not yield to any upstart claiming the mantle of a forgotten past." Commander Voss did not flinch. "We have no desire to rule the galaxy as you do, Admiral. Our purpose is not to conquer, but to restore balance. The Empire's tyranny has gone unchecked for too long. We are here to offer a different path, one that honors the true spirit of humanity." Karthis could sense the conviction in her voice, and it unsettled him. He had fought countless battles, crushed rebellions, and seen entire worlds brought to heel under the Empire's banner. But this was something different. This was not just another enemy to be vanquished. This was a challenge to the very core of what the Empire stood for. "Commander Voss," Karthis said after a long pause, "the Empire does not take kindly to threats, implied or otherwise. If you truly wish to avoid conflict, I suggest you reconsider your course of action." Voss's expression softened slightly, though her resolve did not waver. "The choice is yours, Admiral. We are prepared to defend ourselves, but we do not seek unnecessary bloodshed. Know this: the United Earth Alliance will not be deterred from its mission. We will restore what was lost, with or without the Empire's cooperation." With that, the transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the eternal wrath in stunned silence. Karthis stared at the space where Voss's hologram had been, his mind racing. This was a situation unlike any he had faced before. The United Earth Alliance, if it was indeed what it claimed to be, was not just a military threat. It was a philosophical and ideological challenge to the Empire's dominance. But Karthis was not one to be swayed by ideals or history. He was a soldier, and his duty was clear: to protect the Empire at all costs. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something much larger, something that could change the course of history. "Prepare the fleet for engagement," he ordered, his voice filled with the determination that had carried him through countless battles. "We'll show them that the Empire's might is not to be underestimated." The crew snapped into action, and the Imperial fleet began to move into battle formation. But as Karthis watched the UEA ships on the view screen, a nagging doubt lingered in the back of his mind. These were not mere rebels or pirates. They were something far more dangerous. And if they truly were the heirs to Earth's lost legacy, then this battle would be unlike any other he had fought before. As the Imperial fleet advanced, the first salvos of energy bolts and missiles were exchanged, lighting up the darkness of space with bursts of lethal brilliance. The Battle of the Corthan Nebula had begun, and with it, the fate of the galaxy would hang in the balance. The vastness of space was suddenly alive with the furious exchange of fire as the Battle of the Corthan Nebula erupted. The Imperial fleet, led by Admiral Karthis, surged forward with the discipline and precision that had become their trademark. Their formation was a testament to the Empire's centuries of dominance, a well-oiled machine designed to crush any opposition. But as the first waves of energy bolts and missiles streaked across the void, it became clear that this battle would not be like any the Empire had fought before. The United Earth Alliance UEA fleet responded with a coordinated counterattack that took Karthis and his officers by surprise. Their ships, though fewer in number, moved with a fluidity and grace that defied the conventional tactics of warfare. They danced through the Imperial formations, their advanced propulsion systems allowing them to outmaneuver even the fastest Imperial cruisers. It was as if they anticipated every move the Empire made, reacting with a speed and precision that bordered on the supernatural. Karthis watched the tactical displays, his mind racing to process what he was seeing. The UEA ships' energy shields absorbed the Empire's initial barrage with ease, their hulls shimmering as they deflected the incoming fire. In return, the UEA unleashed a volley of weapons that the Empire had never encountered before. Hyperspace missiles, capable of bypassing traditional defense systems, ripped through the Imperial ranks, while energy lances, beams of focused plasma that cut through shields and armor alike, carved through the Empire's capital ships. "Evasive maneuvers. Shift to Delta formation," Karthus barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. His crew responded instantly, adjusting the fleet's formation to try and counter the UEA's unpredictable tactics. But even as they moved, the UEA ships adapted, shifting their own positions to maintain the upper hand. The Eternal Wrath, Karthus's flagship, shuddered as it took a direct hit from one of the UEA's energy lances. The ship's shields flared and held, but only just. Karthus gritted his teeth, his hands gripping the edge of the command console. This was unlike any enemy he had faced before. They were not just fighting with superior technology. They were fighting with a purpose, a determination that matched, and in some ways, surpassed that of the Empire's finest warriors. As the battle raged on, the Imperial fleet began to suffer serious losses. Several cruisers had already been destroyed, their wreckage drifting lifelessly through the nebula, and more were being overwhelmed by the UEA's relentless assault. Karthus knew that he needed to change tactics, and fast, if they were to have any hope of turning the tide. "Deploy the ironclads," Karthus ordered, his voice grim. The ironclads were the Empire's most heavily armored ships, designed for close-quarters combat. They were slower and less maneuverable than the standard cruisers, but their thick armor and devastating firepower made them a force to be reckoned with. The massive ships lumbered into the fray, their thick, reinforced hulls absorbing the UEA's attacks with brute force. They pushed forward, closing the distance between them and the UEA fleet, and unleashed their full arsenal. The space between the two fleets became a maelstrom of destruction, as the ironclad's heavy cannons fired round after round, each shot capable of obliterating smaller ships with a single hit. For a moment, it seemed as though the tide might turn. The UEA ships, despite their advanced technology, struggled to withstand the sheer power of the ironclad's assault. Several UEA vessels were damaged, their shields flickering and failing under the relentless barrage. But just as the Imperial fleet began to gain ground, the UEA responded with a counterstrike that caught the Empire off guard. "Sir, they're breaking through our left flank," one of Karthus's officers called out, his voice tinged with alarm. Karthus turned to the tactical display and saw what the officer meant. A group of UEA ships had exploited a gap in the Imperial formation, bypassing the ironclads and heading straight for the heart of the fleet. Among them was a ship that dwarfed even the Imperial dreadnoughts, its sleek, angular design bristling with weapons. It was the UEA's flagship, and it was headed directly for the Eternal Wrath. "All power to forward shields," Karthus commanded, his voice steady but laced with tension. "Target their flagship, and prepare to fire the main cannon." The Eternal Wrath was equipped with the Empire's most powerful weapon, a super laser capable of cutting through even the thickest armor. As the UEA flagship closed in, the Imperial crew worked frantically to charge the weapon, knowing that their survival depended on this one shot. But before the super laser could be fully charged, the UEA flagship unleashed a weapon of its own. A beam of concentrated energy lanced out from the ship, striking the Eternal Wrath with a force that sent shockwaves through the entire vessel. The ship's shields flared and buckled, and the bridge was thrown into chaos as consoles exploded and alarms blared. "We've lost the main power grid," an officer shouted, his voice barely audible over the din. "We can't fire the super laser." Karthus cursed under his breath, knowing that their situation was dire. The Eternal Wrath was heavily damaged, and the UEA flagship was closing in for the kill. But he was not about to give up. "Divert all power to the auxiliary systems," he ordered. "Prepare for emergency maneuvers." As the crew scrambled to carry out his orders, Karthus turned his attention to the tactical display, searching for any possible advantage. And then he saw it. A weakness in the UEA flagship's defenses, a small gap in their energy shield that had been exposed during the battle. "Target that gap with all available weapons," Karthus commanded, his voice cold and precise. "We're not going down without a fight." The Eternal Wrath fired a barrage of missiles and energy bolts at the UEA flagship, aiming for the vulnerable spot in its shield. The shot struck true, and the UEA ship shuddered as its defenses were breached. For a moment it seemed as though the tide might turn in the Empire's favor. But the UEA was not so easily defeated. The flagship's hull, made of a material that defied conventional analysis, absorbed the damage and held firm. In response, the UEA ship fired another beam of energy, this time targeting the Eternal Wrath's engines. The Imperial ship shuddered violently as the engines were destroyed, leaving it adrift and vulnerable. "We've lost propulsion," an officer cried out. "We're sitting ducks out here." Karthus knew that they were out of options. The Eternal Wrath was crippled, and the UEA flagship was moving in for the kill. But even in the face of defeat, he refused to surrender. He had served the Empire for decades, and he would not allow himself to be captured or killed by an enemy he still barely understood. "Prepare to initiate the self-destruct sequence," Karthus ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. "If we're going down, we're taking them with us." But before the order could be carried out, another transmission came through. The face of Commander Elena Voss appeared on the bridge's main screen. Her expression was intense, but not without a hint of respect. "Admiral Karthus, there's no need for further bloodshed," she said. "You fought bravely, but this battle is over. Stand down, and we can negotiate terms." Karthus glared at the screen, his pride and loyalty warring with the reality of their situation. He had never surrendered in his life, and the thought of doing so now, to an enemy claiming the mantle of humanity's ancient past, was almost unbearable. "The Empire does not surrender," Karthus replied, his voice hard. "We fight to the last breath." Voss's expression softened slightly, though her resolve remained firm. "Admiral, I respect your courage, but this is not a fight you can win. We don't want to destroy you. We want to build a future where humanity is united, not divided by old grudges. You have my word that your crew will be treated with honor if you surrender." Karthus hesitated, his mind racing. His crew looked to him for guidance, their lives hanging in the balance. The logical choice was clear. They were outmatched, and continuing the fight would only lead to more needless death. But surrendering to the UEA, to these people who claimed to be the true heirs of Earth, felt like a betrayal of everything the Empire stood for. Yet deep down, Karthus knew that this battle was not like the others. The UEA was not a mere rebellion or an upstart faction. They were something much more profound. And if what Voss said was true, then perhaps there was a future beyond the Empire's iron rule, a future where humanity could find a new path. Slowly, reluctantly, Karthus made his decision. "Order all ships to stand down," he commanded, his voice heavy with the weight of the choice. "We will negotiate." The crew, stunned but relieved, complied with his order. Across the battlefield, the Imperial ships powered down their weapons, and the UEA did the same. The fighting ceased, and an eerie silence fell over the Corthan Nebula. Voss nodded, a hint of relief in her expression. "You've made the right choice, Admiral. Let's discuss how we can move forward from here." As the transmission ended, Karthus slumped back in his chair, the weight of the battle and the decision he had just made pressing down on him. The Empire's might had been challenged in a way it had never been before, and the future was uncertain. But one thing was clear. The galaxy had changed, and the echoes of Earth's past had come back to reshape the present. The battle of the Corthan Nebula was over, but the struggle for the galaxy's future had only just begun. The aftermath of the Battle of the Corthan Nebula left the galaxy in a state of stunned silence. The Galactic Empire, once thought to be an indomitable force, had been dealt a blow that reverberated across countless star systems. Word of the battle spread rapidly, carried on the whispers of traders, smugglers, and diplomats, igniting both fear and hope in equal measure. On the bridge of the Eternal Wrath, Admiral Karthus stood gazing at the aftermath of the battle. Wreckage from both fleets drifted silently through the void, a testament to the ferocity of the conflict that had just taken place. The Eternal Wrath itself was heavily damaged, its once proud hull scorched and scarred. The ship's engines were barely functional, and life support systems were running on auxiliary power. But the Imperial fleet had survived, if only just. Around the Eternal Wrath, the remaining ships of the United Earth Alliance, UEA, moved with a sense of purpose, They were regrouping, organizing their forces, and preparing for the next steps. But unlike the Empire's typical behavior after a battle, there was no air of conquest or domination. The UEA was not here to destroy. They were here to rebuild. Karthus watched as a smaller UEA ship approached the Eternal Wrath and docked with it. Moments later, Commander Elena Voss and a small delegation of her officers stepped onto the bridge. There was an air of quiet respect as they entered, the tension of the battle replaced by a somber recognition of the stakes at hand. "Admiral Karthus," Voss said, her voice steady, "thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I know it wasn't an easy decision." Karthus nodded, his expression unreadable. "We've both lost a great deal today, Commander. But it seems that the galaxy has more to gain if we talk rather than continue this fight." Voss studied him for a moment, then gave a slight nod. "Agreed. We didn't come here to destroy the Empire, Admiral. We came to offer a different future, one where humanity can thrive together rather than be divided by old grudges and wars." Karthus remained silent, his thoughts churning. The Empire had stood for centuries, its power unquestioned, its rule absolute. But here before him was something different, something that challenged the very foundation of the Empire's dominance. And yet, there was an undeniable logic to what Voss was saying. The galaxy was vast, its resources immense, but the constant cycle of conquest and rebellion had left it fractured and weakened. Perhaps there was another way. "What exactly are you proposing?" Karthus finally asked, his voice cautious. Voss took a deep breath, as if gathering her thoughts. The United Earth Alliance was formed to preserve the legacy of humanity, to protect what was lost when Earth fell, and to ensure that our people would have a future. We've spent millennia hidden in the depths of space, rebuilding, advancing our technology, and waiting for the right moment to return. That moment is now. She paused, allowing her words to sink in. But we don't want to rule over the galaxy as the Empire has. We believe in cooperation, in unity. The UEA's mission is to restore balance, to create a galaxy where all human civilizations, whether they follow the Empire or not, can coexist and thrive. We're offering you a chance to be part of that future, Admiral. A future where the Empire doesn't have to be an oppressor, but a partner in something greater." Karthus listened carefully, his mind racing. The idea was radical, almost unthinkable. The Empire had always been about power, about control. But what Voss was offering was something different, an opportunity to redefine the Empire's role in the galaxy, to become something more than just a conqueror. "And what does the Emperor think of this?" Karthus asked, his tone neutral. Voss hesitated for a moment, then met his gaze squarely. "The Emperor's response will be up to you, Admiral. You're the one who can make him see that this is the best path forward, not just for the Empire, but for all of humanity. We don't expect this transition to be easy, and we know there will be resistance. But the alternative is continued war, and I don't think any of us want that." Karthus felt the weight of her words. The responsibility she was placing on him was immense. If he agreed to this, he would be challenging the very foundations of the Empire. But if he refused, the galaxy would be plunged into a conflict that could destroy everything. He had served the Empire his entire life, fought for it, bled for it. But now, in this moment, he had to consider what was truly best for the galaxy and for humanity. "I need to speak with the Emperor," Karthus finally said. "This decision isn't mine to make alone." Voss nodded. "Of course, we'll give you the time you need." With that, the meeting concluded, and Voss and her officers returned to their ship. Karthus watched them go, his mind a whirl of conflicting thoughts. He had always believed in the Empire's cause, but now he found himself questioning everything he had once taken for granted. Hours later, Karthus stood alone in his quarters, staring out at the debris-filled expanse of space. The Emperor's face loomed large on a holographic display before him, shrouded in shadow as always. Karthus had just briefed him on the situation, and now he awaited the Emperor's response. For a long moment, the Emperor said nothing, his silence heavy with unspoken thoughts. Finally, his voice, cold and commanding, broke the silence. "You suggest that we negotiate with these upstarts? That we, the Galactic Empire, should bow to their demands?" Karthus straightened, his resolve hardening. Your Majesty, this isn't about bowing to anyone. The UEA isn't looking to conquer us. They're offering us a chance to reshape the galaxy. If we continue this fight, we risk everything. But if we join them, we could lead the galaxy into a new era, one where the Empire stands not as a tyrant, but as a guardian of humanity's future. The Emperor was silent again, considering Karthus's words. When he finally spoke, his tone was measured, contemplative. You believe that the Empire can survive this transition? I do, Karthus replied firmly. But it will require us to adapt, to evolve. We've ruled through fear and force for centuries. But perhaps it's time we ruled through strength and wisdom instead. The galaxy is changing, Your Majesty. We can either change with it or be destroyed by it. There was another long pause, and Karthus could almost feel the weight of the Emperor's decision. Finally, the Emperor spoke, his voice softer, almost resigned. Very well, Admiral. You have my permission to engage in these negotiations. But understand this, the Empire's survival is paramount. If this alliance threatens our power, you must be prepared to act accordingly. Karthus bowed deeply, understanding the gravity of the Emperor's words. I will not fail you, Your Majesty. The transmission ended, leaving Karthus alone once more. He felt a mixture of relief and trepidation. The Emperor's approval was a crucial first step, but the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. He knew that many within the Empire would resist this change. There were those who thrived on the status quo, who saw the Empire's dominance as their right. But Karthus also knew that the galaxy could not continue on its current path. The Battle of the Corthon Nebula had shown him that. The days that followed were a whirlwind of negotiations. The UEA and the Empire held secret talks aboard neutral space stations, far from the prying eyes of the galaxy. The discussions were tense at times, as both sides grappled with the enormity of what they were attempting to achieve. But slowly, gradually, progress was made. The UEA proposed a new alliance, a coalition of human civilizations that would work together to ensure the stability and prosperity of the galaxy. The Empire would remain a dominant power, but it would share that power with others, ensuring that no single entity could ever again threaten the balance of the galaxy. The UEA, in turn, offered to share their advanced technology and knowledge, to help the Empire and other civilizations rebuild and strengthen their worlds. As the talks continued, word began to spread across the galaxy. The idea of a new era, one where the Empire was not a tyrant but a partner in a grand coalition, began to take hold. Worlds that had once feared the Empire now saw the possibility of a brighter future, one where they could thrive without the constant threat of destruction. But there were also those who opposed the idea. Factions within the Empire, driven by fear and ambition, began to stir unrest. They saw the UEA as a threat, an enemy that needed to be crushed, not embraced. Karthus knew that the path ahead would not be easy, that there would be battles still to fight, both within the Empire and beyond. Yet despite the challenges, the seeds of a new era were being sown. The Battle of the Corthon Nebula would be remembered not just as a conflict, but as the beginning of a transformation. The galaxy, once divided by fear and domination, was beginning to come together, driven by a shared vision of a better future. And as the final accords were signed, and the UEA and the Empire prepared to unveil their alliance to the galaxy, Admiral Karthus stood ready to face whatever came next. He had fought for the Empire his entire life, but now he saw a new purpose, a chance to build something lasting, something that could stand the test of time. The dawn of a new era had arrived, and with it, the hope that humanity could rise above its past and forge a future that was brighter than anyone had ever imagined.